heard of the war on poverty, the war on drugs. Our next guest has launched a war on cash. Please give a warm welcome to CEO of PayPal. Please, Dan Schulman, join me on stage. What do you have against cash?
Nothing. I love cash. Why?
I understand that there might be some profit motive you might have in getting rid of our pockets of change and paper.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people have predicted the demise of cash, and a lot of people have been wrong. So I'm not going to prognosticate right now and say that cash will not be with us for the foreseeable future. What I will say, though, is that cash is very inefficient. And 85% of the world's transactions today are still done in cash. And if you think about the costs of cash, for so many people that are excluded from the financial system right now, they basically, every time they try and take cash and change it into a different currency, pay a bill, do something like that, they stand in line. It costs them money to just change their money from one form to another.
So there's some friction.
There's a lot of friction. There's a lot of waste that goes on. And I think that's ridiculous. With technology, we ought to be able to solve that. And I do believe that you have two meta trends going on. You have the explosion of mobile, and there's no underestimating how profoundly that'll affect the financial services industry. And you have the digitization of money, driven predominantly by the explosion of mobile. And so those two things, I think, are going to change our world going forward. And I think they don't just change our world. They have the potential, at least, and that's the thing that drives me maybe the most. They have the potential to actually create financial health for many, many hundreds of millions of people that desperately need that as well.
Now, that's a different argument than the ones you've made so far. One had to do with inefficiency, or we could even talk about waste in the system.
I think they're linked, actually.
Of course, one person's waste is someone else's profit, right? I'm sure lots of people in this room are benefiting from this very wasteful, inefficient system because that's part of their business model. But equally, there are others in the room who want to take your lunch, right? And so you're one of those interesting disruptors who is also an incumbent, because your firm was very early at this game, and yet here you are still sort of fighting the fight.
Yep.
Before we jump into that, I just want to pick up on that point you said about, that seemed to allude elliptically to financial inclusion. Is that what you meant when you said, talking about the final bits of your opening statement there? Is it that digital money, moving from cash to this new mode of payments that we're all in the midst of, will be good for people who are currently unbanked? Is that the argument?
Absolutely. I think if you think about those who are underserved, 70 million plus here in the U.S. I'm sure you've heard all the facts.
Sure. And we've had
today.
Some of the people on stage today
exactly.
who are doing
Jen Fisher was up here, and a
Yeah.
number of others who know this subject better than most. But I do believe that technology can take advantage. You now have basically all the power of a bank branch in the palm of your hand. You have software platforms, you have connectivity, and they can drive out a tremendous amount of cost that's associated with managing and moving cash. And I actually believe that we all ought to be on a mission that managing and moving money should be a right for all citizens and not a privilege for the affluent. And I think we can make that happen. By the way, don't get me wrong. I think there is tremendous opportunity in responsibility. And when I say responsibility, I think we have an obligation to all work together, whether that's the public or the private sector or NGOs, to come together to address this problem. And I think addressing this pressing need is a huge opportunity as well. So I don't think those two things are in opposite forces of each other. I think they actually work hand in hand.
Let's drill right into where things are here in the U.S. I've been seeing some of your ads talking about a group of friends having dinner, and they split the bill. Just click your PayPal app. This reminds me of Shanghai 3 years ago, where we were doing this with WeChat. Can you tell me what are the lag effects in the U.S. That we've seen in other emerging markets that are leapfrogging ahead?
Yeah.
The volume of digital payments in China is orders of magnitude higher at the moment than it is in the U.S. We know some of the reasons. Banks are actually quite good. Your bank money is safe. ATMs are all over the place. So, in other words, the powers of incumbency and legacy thinking, in a way, maybe a bit of consumer laziness, have always been obstacles to innovation. How's that picture changing? Because you guys have been in this game for a very long time. It's hard to call you a startup anymore.
Yep.
In some ways, you're a dinosaur fintech. Can you tell us a little bit? Is the picture? Have you turned the corner on this crusade you guys have been on for a long time?
Well, so how do I respond to that, Vijay? So many provocative things there.
And so little time.
And so little time, exactly. But you asked the question. I may take up the rest of our time just answering it. So first of all, I do think that at PayPal we have kind of reinvented ourselves because we saw these trends emerging. On the consumer side, we see the capability of technology to democratize financial services. And on the merchant side, we see mobile redefining retail and our ability to provide a platform of services so that small and mid-sized merchants can take advantage of our capabilities, and we can democratize those capabilities to really capabilities that previously only larger merchants might have had. Those are tremendous opportunities for us. I think we're at the very, very beginning of digital payments. I think mobile is redefining one industry after another. I look at here at the U.S., to your question, retail is being fundamentally redefined because of mobile. One retailer after another is trying to figure out, how do I take advantage of mobile to get closer to their customers? Digital payments is a part of that. I think that China actually, in many ways, is the role model for a lot of the world in terms of the way that they've leapfrogged in digital payments. Mobile in the US is starting to blur the distinction between offline and online. In China, it's eliminated it. There is no difference between online and offline. I was just in China about 3 weeks ago. Did shopping there using WeChat Pay, and Alipay. And you go into stores, you don't see shopping carts, right? People are just scanning, tapping their phone, doing their QR codes. It's delivered within a half an hour. You're home and you want a refill, you go and it simply automatically does that for you. So it's eliminated that distinction. Here in the US, we grew up with more credit card access, with point of sale infrastructure, with strong credit card systems that offered rewards.
Do you think
they did a leapfrog.
Do those
China.
things that you just identified inhibit a leapfrog? In other words, are we destined for incremental innovation simply because of the system we have?
I think it will move slower here in the US. I absolutely do feel that way. I think you're going to have, in China, you've got really a standard for digital payments. It is the QR code. Here in the US, we still have a hodgepodge of different digital payment systems. It could be QR, it could be NFC. There are a host of different emerging standards for that. And truthfully, swiping your card or dipping your card works pretty well. I actually have a credit card in my pocket right now. It's not weighing me down. Right? Like, it's not like gravity is pulling me down because I'm really burdened by it. So I don't think in the US this is going to be a form factor change driven revolution. In other words, it's not going to go from dipping your card to tapping your phone. It's going to be a value proposition revolution. How can retailers give incremental value through the mobile phone, and therefore the digital payment becomes a part of that entire proposition? So I think that's a really important point here. And I think increasingly retailers are seeing that. I think Amazon's purchase of Whole Foods, or intended purchase of Whole Foods, was the equivalent of sort of Pearl Harbor in the retail industry. Everyone knew that Amazon was an online behemoth,
Yeah.
but everybody always says, well, online's only 10% of the market, 90% is offline. And I think that was a declaration that really online and offline are coming together. And that's really spurring a ton of innovation and new thinking by retail. How do they take advantage of mobile? And we are trying to provide a platform in partnership with a number of players probably in this room to enable merchants to take advantage of this move towards digital commerce and this sort of oncoming. It'll be an evolution, but it'll be revolutionary when we get there.
In this coming change that you just identified, do you think the U.S. regulatory system is fit for purpose, given the disruptive technologies and the pace of business model evolution?
Yeah. I think if you want to play in the financial system, whether you are a fintech company or a traditional financial services company, it is jacks or better in this game to have extraordinary compliance and enterprise risk management. What regulators want and what governments want is for consumers to understand the products and services they're getting, that there's safety and soundness that happens, and you can't come into this system and be a disruptor without recognizing the obligations that we have to work hand in hand with regulators on this. And I take that very seriously. I think compliance and enterprise risk management is a responsibility that we have. I think that governments are completely aligned with the mission of driving financial health for their citizens. This is financial inclusion, most people define as access to a bank account. I think that's just one piece of something. I think we really want to drive towards financial health. We want to, and financial health is having more savings, having budgets that you can do, and software and technology can help with that. It can also help in small business creation. I mean, we've got a product, PayPal Working Capital. These are two facts that I think are really interesting about it. First of all, we don't look at a FICO score at all. We just use our own
Before we get into the two facts, please get your questions ready. In the time remaining, I'll try to take a couple of questions. Yeah.
But easy questions when you're thinking.
Make them tough.
I mean, really simple softball ones.
Take the claws out. Yeah.
Don't do any of that. So I think the two facts are, of the $3 billion we've lent, 25% has been the 3% of counties in the U.S. where 10 or more banks have closed branches. So think about that. Those are sort of banking deserts that have occurred, mostly in lower income neighborhoods, where you can use technology and data and information to provide working capital to small businesses. Right. Small businesses are the lifeblood of neighborhoods. And where we've been able to do that, the average small business sales have gone up 22% versus a control group of 2%. That's what I mean by democratizing capabilities and being able to drive financial health. And there's one example after another. And our philosophy is, if we can think about our systems as platforms, right? PayPal has a platform, not a product, but a platform and suite of capabilities serviced by APIs. Large financial institutions have capabilities. The networks have capabilities. If we can bring those together in where we take the best assets of a company like PayPal, the best assets of large financial institutions and networks around the world, and bring those together to serve those who most need it in differentiated, innovative ways, working hand in hand with governments and regulators who want the same thing on this, can be tremendously powerful for our economies, for our citizens. And I think it's a noble mission for all of us.
Good. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to turn to our audience.
I'd like to stop on that note if I could, but
No, I know. I noticed the attempt to speak slowly and at great length to take up all of our time, but I will not be foiled. Yes, in the back, sir. I believe in the power of the people. A microphone there. Please identify yourself and make it a good, sharp question.
Hi,
Make
I'm
him earn his daily bread.
remember, I do know martial arts, so not such a sharp question.
Exactly.
Okay, that's why I'm keeping my distance. Hi, I'm Marcos Dinnerstein, editor of Digital.nyc, and wondered if PayPal has plans to integrate cryptocurrencies in your offerings.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Is it Marcos?
Marcos.
Yeah, Marcos, nice to meet you. Okay, I'm going to try and answer this relatively quickly because we only have like
Well, you could say yes or no.
4. Well, yeah, but you can't, actually. That's the problem with that question. Because cryptocurrencies are the currency and the underlying protocol. Okay, I think the currencies are not currencies right now, they're commodities. Because they are so variable in terms of their pricing that a retailer cannot, who has maybe a 5% margin, and you see the Bitcoin fluctuation, can accept something, and then if they don't immediately change it into fiat currency, they can lose money on that transaction. And so they're not really currencies right now.
In practical terms, they're not.
Yes, well, they're in practical terms.
And I see some regulators nodding their heads over there,
Yeah.
so I think you're on strong ground on that one.
Well, I also think regulators need to figure out what they want to do on the crypto side as well. The underlying protocol is fascinating, and I think there are a lot of applications, and we are working on a ton of those in terms of can you do identity management in a more secure manner. There are a couple of, well, quite a few others, but we shouldn't underestimate the power of the protocol versus the currency, the cryptocurrency on top of that.
Right. So not a no, but maybe a not yet for the moment.
I told you it wasn't.
All right. Let's see another. Anyone else? Last quick question before we run out of time.
Hi, my name is Jody Perla. I'm wondering if you could share with us what country or countries have been the most challenging for PayPal to operate in.
Thanks for that question, Jody. So PayPal operates in 200 countries around the world, and each country has its own set of regulations and its own set of unique circumstances. I wouldn't say. I would say that we need to just in general be careful that we can take technology and take the knowledge that we have from one market and spread it to another market. And I think that we need to work together across countries to be able to allow that transfer. And I think the more we can think inclusively as opposed to from narrower perspectives, the stronger we can be and the faster we can move towards driving financial inclusion for people who really need it. And I think many countries are struggling right now with this debate around privacy, where's data stored in that, and so we'll still need to work that through. It's a complicated issue across the world, but we're committed to work that with each country and regulator that we work in, and it's pretty much global right now.
Surely China is the biggest market where you have not been allowed or been able to make progress. Is that at least fair to say?
Yeah.
So-
Are you usurping an audience question?
Yeah. I think the person asked for a specific specific country. That's the hardest.
Okay. So you want me to answer that? Because
yes,
I can.
Yeah.
This is good. We should be up here for another. We're a good
We
team
can take this
together.
on the road.
Yeah, exactly. We're actually a huge player in China, but we operate as in a cross-border fashion. So we do quite a large percentage of the share of cross-border trade that goes on between Chinese merchants and the 200 million consumers that we have on our PayPal platform outside of China. And we've just started to do deals within China with some of the players there where Chinese consumers using their wallets can shop at the 17 million merchants that are on the PayPal platform in a seamless fashion. So today, we operate in a cross-border fashion, and that plays into our strength within China.
Last quick question. I think it's fair to say overwhelmingly global transactions are still cash today. When do you predict where we'll see more than 50% of global transactions digital? In our lifetimes? In 10 years?
Yeah. So it's always the hardest question to answer, Vijay, because I think what you can say is we probably all can agree on the future, but what we're going to debate is the timeline there. And that is always going to be something that you make a prediction, you're inevitably going to be wrong on that. However, let me just give you an example. International remittances are an incredibly important part of the economies of many, many countries. And more than 80% of those are still done really, you do your transmission and then it's picked up in cash. It's not done. If you could do all of those digitally instead of in cash, we would save $21 billion. $21 billion that could actually go back to the people that most need them. So to me, that should just be sort of this clarion call that we've got to get there sooner than later, because the people who really need this, it's $21 billion because of the inefficiencies of the market. And so I think we should push to get there as fast as we can because it matters.
Well, I do love a clarion call, so I'll let you off the hook on the date, but let you have the last word that this is the direction we should go.